Fire it on, yeah.
Thank you. Confirm live.
Right, thank you, Amanda. This is a meeting of Cabinet on the 11th of March at 1:30. I'm obliged to inform you that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Members of the public are able to hear and view the papers displayed during the broadcast of the meeting. This meeting is being held using remote technology, and should any Cabinet member experience technical difficulties during the meeting, they should immediately contact the telephone number previously provided. Councillors are requested to mute their microphones unless asked to speak. The chat function may be used to indicate the desire to speak. As leader, I will interpret the Council's existing standing orders in light of the requirements of remote participation, with advice from the monitoring officer prior to making any ruling. At the start of the meeting, I will ask members of the Cabinet to confirm their presence and any interests. I will ask everyone that speaks during the meeting, including members of the Cabinet, group leaders or officers, to introduce themselves before they speak. Right, item 1 is apologies. Amanda, do we have any apologies?
No apologies, Leader.
Okay, right. So item 2 and 3 will combine, which will be the roll call and asking members to declare whether they have any interests. So I'll go through the Cabinet and ask them to respond. So Councillor Gwilym Butler.
In attendance, Chair, no pecuniary interests.
Councillor Lee Chapman.
Present Leader, no pecuniary interests.
Councillor Steve Charmley.
Yeah, present Leader, no pecuniary interests.
Councillor Dean Carroll.
Present Leader, no pecuniary interests.
Councillor Steve Davenport.
Yes, present Leader, no pecuniary interests.
Councillor Rob Macy.
Present Leader, no pecuniary interests.
Councillor David Minery. No, I haven't seen David anywhere yet, so we'll see. He may join us.
He sent apologies, Leader, sorry.
Oh, right. Oh, so Amanda, if you can record those. Councillor Leslie Picton.
Present Leader, no pecuniary interests.
And Councillor Ed Potter.
Present Leader, and as previously with items related to the local plan, item 7, I won't take part in the discussions or debate, and I will remove myself from the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll see who's here amongst the group leaders. Alan Mosley. No. Pauline D. I know Pauline's around.
Yeah, present and no pecuniary interest.
Councillor Roger Evans.
Present, no pecuniary interest.
And we have questions from the following councillors, so if they can just confirm whether they're here or not. Councillor Andy Boddington.
I'm here, and if I may, I'll represent Richard Huffer, who's away at a funeral.
Okay. Councillor Nat Green. No, I haven't seen that. We'll sort that out. Councillor Roy Aldcroft.
No, he's not here.
No. Councillor Ed Bird. I think we saw Ed earlier. Ed.
Present. Thank you.
Okay. And Councillor David Vasmer.
I'm present.
Okay, thanks. The officers, I think, who should all be in attendance are Mark Barrow, Andy Begley, Karen Bradshaw, Tanya Miles, James Walton, Claire Porter, and Amanda Hollyoak, who is our committee clerk. Right, so we move on to item 3, which are minutes. The minutes of the Cabinet meeting held on Monday the 8th of March are not ready, and these will be presented at the next Cabinet meeting scheduled for Monday the 29th of March, so there's no decisions needed there. Item 4 are public questions. So the first question is from Rob Wilson. Can I ask Claire Porter to read the question out, please?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Mr. Rob Wilson asks, I welcome the passing of the Putting Pedestrians First motion at the council meeting held on Thursday the 25th of February 2021. What immediate actions will the council be taking to implement the resolutions contained in the motion? In particular, those practical steps that require no significant expenditure, but would provide an immediate benefit to residents, in particular, keeping pavements clear of temporary signs, reducing the waiting times at pedestrian crossings to a minimum, launching a county-wide commonplace style consultation to identify where pavements and the walking environment are inadequate, Please can you give a timescale for the other resolutions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Claire. I'm going to ask Councillor Steve Davenport to respond. Steve?
Thank you, Rob, for your question. There are a number of issues that we are bringing forward. This is the development of walking and cycling plan, and we will be currently interviewing and seeking an appointment for someone to fill this vacancy. And this actually makes a commitment from Shropshire Council in this sector. The tools will be shaping the draft and commonplace style consultation recognised as one of the key tools in moving this forward. Previous responses relating to our local transport plan development and consultation and stakeholder engagement after the election period has already been made. Hence, the hopeful appointment and progression of the LCWIP and local transport plan will provide a coherent approach. On a day-to-day basis, we were temporary signs obstructing pavements, then this can be requested or removed or relocated under existing powers. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Steve. Question 2 is from Charles Green. Now, I'll read the first bit out and then I'll move to Claire. But Mr. Green has circulated several questions which have all been circulated to Cabinet members and are attached to the web page for the meeting. Written responses to all his questions will be provided in due course. He has been invited to identify one of his questions to be raised at the meeting, and this is it, and I'm going to ask Claire to read it out. So Claire?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, this question's from Mr. Charles Green of the Campaign for the Protection of Rural England. The top line of the preparation programme on page 12, and this is to do with the local plan, plan consultation, on page 12 incorrectly shows the Authority Monitoring Report, the AMR, as having been published in both December 2019 and December 2020. It appears on the preparation programme because it is a key monitoring document, and it was also said to be a key document for the Regulation 19 stage of consultation on the draft plan. In fact, however, no AMR has been published since March 2018, and this important monitoring document is now over 3 years overdue. Its non-appearance is thought by us and others to be one reason why the draft plan may be unsound. Will the preparation programme on page 12 be amended to remove this incorrect information? When will the AMR actually be published? It was last promised for early 2021. And will this date now be shown correctly on the preparation programme? Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. I'm going to ask Councillor Rob Macy, the portfolio holder, to respond. Rob?
Okay, thank you, Leader. It is recognised that the authority's monitoring report, the AMR, is an important document in monitoring the progress of the adopted local plans policies, and Shropshire Council generally aims to publish such a document each year. Over recent years, the Council has needed to balance this with the need to progress a comprehensive local plan review. However, it is anticipated that an updated AMR will be published in advance of the publication of papers for full council in July. When the AMR is to be published, we will notify those on our consultee database.
Okay, thank you. And we move on to question 3, which is from Malcolm Andrew, TRPG. I'm not quite. Oh, the Trefonan Rural Protection Group. And as with Charles Green, Mr. Andrew has circulated several questions, and these have all been circulated to the web pages for the meeting. Written responses to all his questions will be provided in due course. He has been invited to identify one of his questions to be raised at the meeting, and I'm going to ask Claire Porter to read it out. So, Claire.
Thank you. Mr. Malcolm Andrew asks, at what point does the Cabinet expect to ratify the final draft local plan to allow the Place Overview Committee to give scrutiny to the final draft local plan in accordance with their work programme before it is presented to full council in July? Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. I'm going to ask Councillor Rob Macy to respond. Rob?
Okay, thank you, Leader. Cabinet will not be asked to agree the submission version of the local plan ahead of full council in July. Whilst the current work programme of the Place Overview Committee continues to include reference to the local plan, there is only one further meeting of the committee in the current administration, and this item is not due to be discussed. It will therefore be a decision for the new Place Scrutiny Committee in the new administration following May's local elections whether to continue to include this item on the work programme for that committee.
Okay, thank you very much, Rob. Question 4 is from David Cooper. I'm going to hand over to Claire again. Claire.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. David Cooper asks, it was reported recently that the leader of Dudley Council has called for Shropshire to make more provision to meet the Black Country's needs in the local plan. The draft local plan already includes provision for 1,500 homes to meet the Black Country's needs up to 2038. The Shropshire Star reported that Councillor Harley said some 1,500 of this could be met by the proposed housing allocations in the plan around Shifnal and Bridge North, with the addition of up to 3,000 dwellings to be met at land to the north of Junction 3 of the M54 as part of a new strategic settlement. The draft plan includes a new allocation at Bridge North for a 1,050 home garden village. This would be developed by 2038, with further expansion later. This proposal is understood to have been brought forward by the developer to meet Shropshire Council's growth aspirations for Bridge North. Could the council explain what steps have been taken to arrive at the conclusion that this is an appropriate scale of development for Bridge North, and in particular, the extent to which this was intended to meet the Black Country's needs? Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Can I ask Councillor Rob Macy, portfolio holder, to respond? Rob.
Thank you, Leader. The proposed housing requirement for Bridge North, identified in our policy S3 of the draft local plan as 1,800 dwellings over the plan period, seeks to respond to the identified role of Bridge North as a principal centre within the plan, as well as being the county's third largest settlement. The proposed scale of growth has therefore taken account of the strategic nature of the town plays in the east of the county. The town's extensive level of services and facilities, the opportunity to strengthen the town's economic role and to deliver a better balance of development between housing and employment, and the relatively low levels of residential completions in recent years. The draft plan proposes that a significant proportion of this requirement, around 1,050 dwellings, will be met through the delivery of the proposed garden village on land to the west of the town, in land outside the Greenbelt, which is felt an appropriate opportunity to meet Bridge North's development needs, incorporating a sustainable mix of new facilities and uses, including employment. Draft Policy S2 of the pre-submission local plan identifies the overall housing requirement for the county in the plan period of 30,800 dwellings. It is proposed that as part of the duty to cooperate process, that this requirement incorporates 1,500 dwellings from the Black Country authorities in order to provide support to meeting an element of their unmet need. This cross-boundary unmet need is proposed to be incorporated into the overall housing requirement for the county, and it is therefore not proposed that any specific site or settlement is intended to incorporate these needs. It should be noted that this scale of proposed cross-boundary residential of 1,500 dwellings has been endorsed by the Association of Black Country Authorities, of which Dudley Borough Council is included, in their recent response to the Regulation 19 consultation. The Council will be continuing the duty to cooperate discussions through ABCA.
Okay, thank you very much, Rob. Question 5 is from David Walker. Claire, can I invite you to read it out? Or it's quite complicated, so I'll leave you to work out what you read and what you don't.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Mr. David Walker's question is, in recent media output, there had been comment from Cabinet members that the use of SIL and the Section 106 money to contribute to building the North West Relief Road. The Council have published their infrastructure statement dated December 2020, some 10 months after year end. Many authorities have been quicker at reporting their annual infrastructure statement. Indeed, Shropshire Council used to publish SIL figures much earlier in the year, sometimes as early as May. Given we are nearly at the end of this financial year, what are the projected totals for the SIL categories for 2020-21? How much of the SIL categories, Section 106 money, has been allocated to the North West Relief Road? Does that allocation have any implications for items listed in the statement, Regulation 123 lists, given they are out of date and don't mention the North West Relief Road? Will there be any unallocated funds left after contributing to the road? Why then is the last published list, the SIL regulation list, so out of date? A list that makes no mention of the North West Relief Road. Wouldn't a more timely approach to reporting be more beneficial to everybody? Can parish councils be updated on their neighbourhood funds so that they can properly plan their own activities? Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. I'm going to invite Councillor Gwilym Butler to respond. Gwilym.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Mr. Walker, for the question, which is very thorough with lots of detail required. The question was received on Tuesday afternoon. Officers are currently working on the response, and a written response will be given at the soonest possible time. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. That's questions from members of the public. Now we go to item 5, questions from members of the council. The first question is from Councillor Andy Boddington. I think Andy is on the call, so Andy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. You'll excuse me for not showing my picture, but I'm replacing the blinds and the whole room is flooded out with light. Also, this question was due at last Monday's cabinet, but was rolled over to this one, and you've already made actually a decision. So let me cut the question a bit short, which I'm sure you'll be welcome. Or you will welcome. The Big Town Plan, BTP, represents a bold vision for Shrewsbury Town Centre, but it's also important for the county town, and its impact will extend across the county town's hinterland, including into Mid Wales. This impact is no more apparent than in the proposal to demolish the county bus station and replace it with housing. Shrewsbury Town Council has already agreed to oppose removal of the bus station. Having spoken to bus companies and rural bus companies, I agree with that position. Rural bus services into Shrewsbury are at risk of failure if passengers are forced to change at satellite bus stations on the outskirts of Shrewsbury. Journey times will increase and bus services will no longer be convenient. That could lead to an adverse modal shift from buses to cars. It could also lead to reduced footfall in Shrewsbury Town Centre in favour of locations such as Telford, with direct services to the bus station in the heart of the shopping centre. And it could lead to increased ruralisation and more reliance on deliveries booked online. So on Monday you agreed to the consultation, and my question actually asked about equality impact assessment, which I felt had to be there before it went out, and a movement plan that considers bus movements between Shrewsbury and rural areas. There are just a few sites within the loop that can accommodate a bus station and, importantly, layover facilities. BTP, Big Town Plan, must champion rural Shropshire as well as promoting the county town. In the light of the reaction to BTT, particularly from rural bus companies, members of the Cabinet will have seen the letter. My question was, would the Council delay consultation until an equalities impact assessment and a movement plan that encompasses rural areas has been produced and published? Thank you.
I'm going to ask Councillor Steve Davenport to respond. Steve?
Yes, I can respond, but it'll be a response from me because I have nothing else. And
I think it's meant to be me.
Sorry?
It's meant to be me, Leader.
Oh, right. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Steve Charmley then. Right, Steve.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, the Big Town Plan recognised the importance of an integrated public transport network that not only serves the town centre but also supports the specific needs of the wider county. It aspires to reduce unnecessary traffic entering and passing through the town in preference for more sustainable, cleaner forms of transport, promote walking and cycling, and provide more space for pedestrians in the town's streets and squares. Parking provision in the town will also encourages the use of car parks outside the loop of the River Severn and beyond, supported by the new park and ride facility. Parking will be provided within the loop of the town centre for those that have a specific need. It is also recognised that there is a requirement for dedicated bus facilities that enter the town and is well served and promote all modes of public transport accessible to Shrewsbury rural hinterland. While the master plan vision and the Riverside strategic development framework suggest potential development could be accommodated on the on the current bus station rather. These illustrations are primarily to demonstrate the application of the core framework principles that underpin delivery moving forward. In this context, assurance can be given that it is not being recommended that the town's bus station is removed without replacing it with a facility appropriate to the Shrewsbury context and at a location that effectively supports model shift, in particular to and from the town's railway station. It's acknowledged that the master plan vision and recently launched Smithfield Riverside Strategic Development Framework should reference these wider movement objectives more explicitly and clarify that the town will be served by buses as well as the wider public transport, walking and cycling, whilst finding a balance for those wishing to access the town by private car. This will be addressed by the outcomes of the consultation process for both the master plan vision and the strategic development framework, with appropriate amendments made and reported back to Cabinet in the summer of this year. And a quality impact assessment will be undertaken of the final documents and will ensure the concerns raised will be assessed. The master plan vision consultation will formally conclude on March the 10th, and it's proposed that the Riverside Strategic Development Framework consultation will commence towards the end of May for a period of at least 6 weeks. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Charmley. Right, so we move on to question 2 from Councillor Nat Green. Now, when I asked earlier, Nat didn't appear to be around. It's quite a simple question, really, so I'll read it out. Will a low traffic zone or neighbourhood for Shrewsbury be implemented by October? And I think this time it is, Councillor Steve.
It is, yeah.
Steve.
Okay, Leader. We are reviewing proposals for low traffic zone in Shrewsbury in consultation with the bid representatives of the Town Council. As of the 12th of April, we will be reinstating the social distancing measures in Shrewsbury and other market towns as existed prior to lockdown. The potential for a low traffic zone will need to be considered in conjunction with the development of the Big Town Plan, local transport plan and the movement strategy for Shrewsbury, which will also include the town's parks, car parks and park and ride. All of these will need to be assessed, considered, consulted on before any determination can be made. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Steve. We move on to question 3, which is from Councillor Roy Oldcroft, and I don't think Roy's here, so I'll read the question out. Would it be possible for the Cabinet Member for Highways to explain the mitigations this council will put in place with HS2 to minimise the effect of 300 trucks a day passing through the parish over 7 years? And I'm going to ask Councillor Steve Davenport to respond.
Yes, well, okay. As you well know, Leader, this is the 4 years ago we set about this when you took the chair as leader and went to war and been dealing with it ever since. But to answer the question from Roy Allcroft, further to the question raised by Councillor Allcroft, he will be aware the work that has been undertaken by Pacific officers lead. And actually, at this point, I'm going to pay tribute to Andy Morton, who's been the lead officer on that since he's been joined the council, who's done a tremendous job, absolutely tremendous. Shropshire Council Transport team and other key officers of the council will support the portfolio holder for highways and transport and the local member of parliament on these issues. There has been engagement and consultation with representatives of Wall Parish Council for a significant period of time to address the concerns that construction traffic will have upon the village on ongoing discussions with HS2 as regard to the impact of the village and possible mitigations to the fully funded from HS2, and a long period of negotiation has ensued. The list of possible interventions has been refined and final proposal has been submitted. 30 transport interventions, actually it's 31 transport interventions have been agreed, and in full or in principle. There are still some interventions that have to be agreed. or still negotiated, and these final ones are being actively resolved. A further meeting to finalise the intervention is organised. I have to say, we've been lots of meetings, almost weekly at times. We'll have concern to achieve agreement, so we'll confirm the HS2, also significant time for the work to be delivered prior to the consultation work at Crewe beginning. Just to read a few of the 31: upgrade pedestrian crossings, numerous vehicle activated signs, improving gateways into the village, numerous junction safety improvements, improved footway, improved visibility, resurfacing, road improvements, safety mirrors, safety measures outside the village and passing places. And some of these will be legacy work for war eventually. It is hoped that the final list will be confirmed shortly and the final details are agreed and the mitigations can be widely shared. Suffice to say, the Parish Council, Shropshire Council, working closely with myself, the MP, to ensure the mitigations, and actually the Minister, Andrew Stevenson. So it's been quite a group of people, but we are actually getting there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Steve. We move to question 4, which is from Councillor Richard Hoffer, but I'm going to invite Andy Boddington, Councillor Andy Boddington, to read it out. Andy.
Thank you, Peter. Burford has seen significant growth. A housing development for 33 homes at the Aspire Centre is underway. A further 40 homes are proposed adjoining Lineage Farm and 100 homes adjoining Boraston Drive. What conversations has Shropshire Council had with Malvern Hills to ensure there are adequate local services, including GP and schools, given that these are in Worcestershire, not Shropshire? So, part 1, has Shropshire Council had conversations with Malvern Hills District Council and Worcestershire County Council to ensure that there are adequate local services, including parking, road improvements, along with GP and school services in Tenbury, which is also seeing significant housing growth? Given that the infrastructure impact of expansion of Burford is mostly in Tenbury, what discussions have taken place on supporting infrastructure provision in Tenbury through SIL payments made by Burford housing developers within Shropshire? Thank you.
Okay, I'll try and respond to this.
Leader.
Have you got? I didn't know whether Rob had got the answers or not.
Sorry.
So
Yes. Yeah. I
okay, I'll leave it to you then, Rob. Yep, fine. Rob Macy.
Thank you very much, Leader. In response to question 1, Shropshire Council has undertaken appropriate duty to cooperate discussions with Malvern Hills District Council and Worcestershire County Council during the local plan review process, focusing on the strategic cross-boundary considerations, including strategic infrastructure. Statements of common ground are now being prepared in collaboration with the adjoining local authorities based on the proposals within the draft Shropshire local plan. And in response to the second question, as part of the duty to cooperate process with Malvern Hills and Worcestershire County Council, there has been no discussions regarding the use of SIL payments resulting from development in Burford for use within Tenbury.
Okay, thank you very much, Rob. I have been to Tenbury to Burford Parish Council on occasion. It's a lovely place. Right, moving on to question 5 from Councillor Ed Bird. Ed, I think, is present. So, Ed.
Thank you. So it's Edward Bird from Shifnal South and Cosford. So my question is regarding a recent article in the Shropshire Star, in which Dudley Council leader Peter Harley, the leader of Dudley Council, has written to Shropshire Council objecting to its decision to withdraw backing for the development at junction 3 of the M54. And I notice also that Mike Bird, who's the leader of Walsall Council, I should hasten to add that he's not a relation, has also sort of objected to this now. Can the Cabinet please provide assurance that its stance will not change and that the land at junction 3 will remain in the Greenbelt? Thank you.
Okay, I'm back to Rob Macy. You're a busy lad at the moment, Rob.
Thank you, Leader. Following extensive consultation and consideration of issues during the Regulation 18 stage of the plan preparation, in December 2020, Cabinet agreed to consult on the pre-submission draft of the local plan at the Regulation 19 stage. This did not include proposals for development on land north of Junction 3 on the M54 and thus proposed to retain this land in the Greenbelt. Consideration will now be given to all the duly made representations during the Regulation 19 consultation. Whilst it is acknowledged that the recent letter from the leader of Dudley Borough Council has raised concerns about the omission of land at Junction 3, it should also be noted that the duly made representations made by the Association of Black Country Authorities, ABCA, of which Dudley Borough Council are included, have raised no objections regarding the omission of the land north of Junction 3 for development relating to issues of soundness or a duty to cooperate legal compliance. The Council will be continuing with the duty to cooperate discussions through ABCA. And further to this, I just want to clarify, we're undertaking this review in order to maintain an up-to-date local plan that works for Shropshire. Decisions about how we do this lie with this authority before being considered by the Government Inspector. We take our legal duty to cooperate with others seriously, as has been demonstrated by our engagement with other authorities and updates and decisions made by Cabinet at these meetings. In fact, as referenced earlier, we have reached an agreement that does not require Shropshire to specify any sites or alter our plan from the one we think is best for our area. That being said, I fail to understand how two authorities that have signed a letter from the Association of Black Country Authorities providing broad support for this position can in the very same consultation enter a contradictory position. I've also noted the strong response from the local MP Mark Pritchard and the disappointment expressed by our own leader. What I would say to the people of Shropshire is that we continue to work to produce a local plan that meets our legal duties and that is right for Shropshire. Beyond that, Shropshire will not be dictated to by other authorities outside of our boundaries, especially those failing to abide by the good faith under which we have proceeded. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Rob. Right, question 6 is from Councillor David Vasmer. David?
Thank you. In a meeting of the Place Overview Committee on Tuesday, 2nd of March, a Cabinet member stated that the Council will be spending an extra £40 million on highways during the next 4 years, increasing funding by 10 million each year. This commitment was made verbally at the meeting and then repeated using social media. I'm unsure if this is capital revenue spending, whether this includes the already announced Mile End project at Oswestry, or is to be spent maintaining our roads after years of cuts made in the budget by this Cabinet. I've looked at the recent financial strategy, which is agreed by Cabinet and which the Council also endorsed, can provide no reference to this commitment to spend an extra £40 million. Can you please direct me to the page or pages where this appears and confirm that the Cabinet agrees with this statement? Have any conversations and agreement being sought from the Executive Director of Resources, James Walton, after the following statements were included on page 41 of his financial strategy report agreed by Council just a few days ago? With the growth in services such as social care anticipated to grow, this results in a funding gap of £43.3 million in 2023, growing to £58 million in 25-26. The current funding mechanism is inappropriate and unsustainable. Without the fundamental change promised by fair funding, Shropshire Council simply does not have the tools in the box to resolve this issue.
And before I ask Councillor Steve Davenport to respond, I have to say that you've missed out lots of the words that were in the document. You've just put dots in their place, and I think you've missed the meaning of some of the financial strategy. But I'm going to ask Councillor Steve Davenport to respond. Steve?
Yes, again, I haven't got the answer on this one.
Oh, right. I'm quite happy to respond there.
Yes,
I've got the answer.
Peter.
Yeah, right. The administration has indeed pledged to spend an additional 40 million on highways over the next 4 years. Councillor Vasman will not find this allocation within the budget, as otherwise we would not be referring to it as additional funding. There are many ways in which this funding can be provided, including grants, lobbying for additional government funding, borrowing, use of reserves, efficiencies, capitalisation or reallocation of existing funds, or compensatory cuts. We would discuss our proposals with James Walton and bring our fully costed proposal back to full council for approval and at an appropriate time in the future. Our Section 151 officer has indeed made reference to the unsustainable nature of the council's budget. Hence, a motion was brought to council last week to write an open letter to the Prime Minister to bring our financial position to his attention. I can confirm that this letter was sent on the 9th of March, a couple of days ago, and signed by myself. So, right, we'll move on. That's the all the questions from members.
Can I just have
oh yeah, you can come back. Right, yeah, on it.
All right, thanks very much. Thank you very much. No, I just thought it was an extraordinary way in which to announce extra funding. Extra funding is necessary for highways, but to do it in a place overview committee without proper consideration at council or cabinet, I just found extraordinary. And I do think that these things ought to be properly considered in the future.
And they will be, and as there is an assurance that everything will come back to full council. But we can make promises of what we intend to do in the future, and we're quite at liberty to do so. And we are committed to improving the nature of the roads, particularly in South Shropshire, where there are some particular problems. Right, item 6 are scrutiny items, but there are no scrutiny items. So we move on to the main business of the meeting, which is item 7, the local plan update to preparation timetable. Right, I'm going to invite Councillor Robert Macy to explain the nature of the item.
Thank you, Leader. So the purpose of today's report and the sole purpose of the report is to seek agreement for a revision to the Council's Local Development Scheme, the LDS, included as Appendix 1 to the report. This includes an amendment to the proposed timetable for the ongoing preparation of the local plan. The reason this is necessary is a direct result of the extension to the length of the recent Regulation 19 consultation on the pre-submission version of the local plan, which took account of the impact of the current lockdown restrictions, which came into force on the 5th of January, 2 weeks into the consultation. An up-to-date and publicly available LDS is required under national legislation, and it's important to ensure that communities and organisations have a clear understanding of the timings around key milestones in the preparation of local planning documents. Following the close of the recent Regulation 19 consultation at the end of February, the proposed timetable provides a positive and achievable timetable for the Council to fully assess all duly made representations, while also responding effectively to the government's ambition for local authorities to maintain up-to-date and positive local plans for their area, and support a continuation of the plan-led approach to development. The new proposal is therefore full council consideration of submission to government for examination of mid-July 2021, submission subject to full council's approval in late July, an independent examination which would run from July 2021 to May 2022, and proposed adoption subject to full council approval in July 2022. It should be noted that the exact timetabling post-submission is harder to predict, as this is subject to the Planning Inspectorate, and this may need to be reviewed once we have entered into early conversations with the Planning Inspectorate. So with that, I move the recommendation in the report.
Okay, I'm happy to second it. I can't see anybody saying they want to comment. This really is just about the timescale, not the content of the plan. Oh, right. Councillor Roger Evans wants to ask a question. Roger.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm having some trouble with the computer getting it up, the conversations up, but thank you. I and a number of other councillors wanted to look at and ask a number of questions after the Regulation 18 consultation was finished, but this was refused. I note the answer to an earlier question about the future look at this plan before it goes to full council. Disappointed with that answer. There are a number of questions about the plan, and if anyone looks at the back pages, Roger, it is a question about the pages.
Say something, Roger. This is about the timetable. It's not going to be about. We're not going to ask allow questions about the contents of the plan.
No, okay, no, I understand that. And I'm not asking a question about that. Needed to make that comment, but it's on the paper before the cabinet now. and it's about the risk assessments that are shown within the paper that is brought to the table this morning. That's my question. And I noticed that on page 20 onwards, then up to page 23, there is the assessment of the total risk score for this plan. I don't think this council can afford to have this plan prove to be unsound. And there are 8 there where there is a 12 classed as medium risk. And of those, there are a number which quote the resources to look at the plan and to take it forward to the July meeting. And there are various comments about it. I've asked questions before about sufficient resources to look at the local plan and the preparation. And looking at those numbers there, it is very high, and it says the likelihood at 4 out of the 5, coming up to 12 points, which is just below the red line. They are very, very high. Can I be assured that there are sufficient resources? And I pay compliments to the present staff. I think every councillor would do that. But can I be assured that there are sufficient resources being devoted to bring the local plan forward to July, and also if the scrutiny agrees it on their programme, that it will be looked at in some depth.
No, Roger, you're straying off the timetable that we're talking about today. I'm sorry. If there is more resources are needed to ensure that the plan hits the timetable, I will personally ensure that that is achieved. So I don't think, and any suggestion that this council lacks resources to do its proper jobs is complete nonsense. We've got plenty of reserves. We will make sure this document is properly financed and achieved. Okay. But I'm going to go back now to Councillor Rob Macy just to see if he has any further comments before we move to the vote. Rob?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I think just picking up on the risk assessment, actually, if people look at the risk assessment and the ones identified, some of those are risks that would be inherent in anybody preparing a local plan, not dependent on resources. Any of those would apply, whoever was preparing a plan at whatever stage. Obviously, as you go through the different stages, those risks, a lot of those reduce and drop away. We've produced a timetable, which you've heard, we think is perfectly achievable. And as the leader has said, the commitment is there to resource it as necessary. So this is the timetable that we've published. This is the one we will be working to, and we'll proceed on that basis.
Okay, right. I'm going to go to a vote, or at least I'm going to ask if there's anybody who dissents from the recommendation that's on the screen in front of us. And if I'll give you all a few seconds, and if not, we'll agree the recommendations. Nobody seems to be indicating otherwise, so the recommendations are agreed. Can I thank you all for your attendance? Well, I'm sure it won't be long before we all meet again. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.